I have been solid, consistent on Bronny James. And what I've said about Bronny James is he's a good player, and he's going to be a really good college player. I was stunned and had no idea how Jonathan Givony, who is really well respected in the industry in terms of his player rankings, the work he does leading up to the NBA draft, put him last year, about this time or maybe early into the spring, as the number 10 prospect in this year's NBA draft. When I said, I don't know if he definitely wasn't a top 5, probably wasn't a top 10 player in his high school league last year. And throughout this season, because of LeBron's comments last year where he's better than half the guys, some of these guys in the NBA this year, he could help us. People continue to call, you're just a hater. No, I'm not. I'm just actually giving you what the truth is. And I don't have to kiss LeBron's butt. I just don't. I'm not a hater. I'm not saying he stinks. I'm just saying, look, man, he's a kid. He's got to learn how to be a point guard. He's got to learn to take over games. There's lots of things he's got to clean up. And I think eventually he'll be a really good college player. But this rushing him to professional basketball. Well, earlier today, ESPN.com came out with their 2024 draft prospects mock draft list, and he's now been moved to 2025. Hey, not a one and done. Now he's a two and done. I don't hate saying I told you so. I told you so. But it is a weird world where a guy goes from 10th, nowhere to 10th on the draft board list, and then all of a sudden we're let's just move him up the list. Ric Bucher joins us, Fox Sports 1 NBA analyst. Buch, how much... I feel like a lot of this is kind of the same story as we see some of the LeBron stories, about the league now. How much of it is I don't want to say fear of repercussion, but, look, he's a really powerful figure. Clutch is a really powerful. Clutch is really powerful in the sport, even in college basketball, because they represent college kids that are allowed to. How much of this is kind of part of your life, where now you're starting to see that guys, if you don't rate a guy higher than he should be, you feel like you'll be out of the circle, and you have to overrate certain parts.
Oh, there's no doubt that there's a fear factor within the media, certain factions of the media, when it comes to dealing with stars. And let's face it, access is the number one thing that everybody is striving for, who is reporting on the league. And players and agencies have shown no qualms about cutting someone off if, or making them, an enemy of the state if they're not selling the song that they once sung, or singing the song that they once sung on a particular situation or player. I do think that maybe in the case, there's a couple things when it comes to Bronny. Number one, obviously the heart issues, missing 5 months going into the season, had an impact on people's perception. And I don't know how we got to the point where he was a top 10, because I believe that was prior to the heart issues. I don't know how it started there, other than, and this is my only summation, because I heard much of the same. I was just baffled, honestly, looking at his high school career, looking at what he did as an AAU player. He's never been the best player on his team.
Right.
So, how do you get into the top 10 in the draft?
I don't know.
If you've never been. But I believe some of that had to be driven by, not that LeBron necessarily was putting the fear of God in Jonathan Givony or any of the other mock draft people, but that the expectation was that the Lakers were going to do LeBron's bidding, and as a result, Bronny might get drafted a lot higher than he otherwise would.
Okay, so does this change? Because, again, none of this happens in a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
So it stands to reason that putting that out there means, Bronny's going to be in college next year. So does this change in any way? Because with the story last week was hey, they considered taking Bronny James to make LeBron happy. Does this change in any way our thoughts on what happens with LeBron after this season?
No, it doesn't. I'm just because they're putting him in the 2025 draft class does not, to me, automatically mean that he's going to spend another year in college. I've had people in the league tell me he should, because he's just not ready. Again, in part because of the heart issues, in part because was it Isaiah Collier is leading USC, and so the feeling is Isaiah is going to be drafted. It's going to be a first-round pick, most likely in this draft.
And they also lose Boogie. Again, if he stays, they lose Boogie Ellis, who's a fifth-year senior, former McDonald's All-American, right? So, I actually think he has a chance to have a great natural progression as a college player, right? Comes off the bench, starts a little bit his freshman year, will start all the time next year, and then really by his junior year, he has a chance to be a really good, maybe draftable prospect. He just has to develop, and we have to not rush it.
Yep. No, agreed. And for everything I've heard, look, the difficulty I have with this is that from everything I've heard, Bronny is a great kid.
Correct.
He's a great teammate. He plays the right way. He's smart. He has the ability. The belief is he has the ability to be a solid NBA role player given the opportunity to develop. He's undersized, so he's going to have to be a combo guard. It's not going to be easy, but if you're LeBron's son, he could not be a good guy. He could not be as good a guy as he is, and it would be kind of understandable. But all that said, I don't believe that just because he's being ranked now in the 2025 class that he's not going to be a Los Angeles Laker next year. I think chances are he doesn't get drafted, but I could fully see them signing him as a free agent because let's face it, I don't see LeBron waiting another year to play with Bronny, and he has made it evident that is one of the things that he wants to do. And I just, you don't think he has 2 seasons? You don't think he has 2 years left? How many? My thing is I don't think there's any question he stays in Los Angeles. Okay. True. Absolutely. So, I mean, because I don't think they're going to move Bronny. You got the 2 other kids here. I don't think he stays with the Lakers. The question is, is it 1 year or is it 2? And if he stays in college, it's 2. Because I agree with you. He wants to play a year with him. Right. But have you ever known LeBron James to be patient? No, but hold on, listen. Let me give you a scenario. I've thought a lot about this. Okay, all of their positioning and their logic behind what they did and didn't do at the trade deadline is to set themselves up to get we can still go get a star to go along with these 2 next year. Is that fair? Yep. Okay. So and I think Bronny. I think LeBron's really smart, and I do think he knows it'd be a bit of a distraction, right? He's not really ready to play. And also, LeBron, I'm sure his last year, he wants to be kind of farewell tour. But I don't think I think he wants to make one more run at it. And I think that takes away from the idea of one more run at it. Whereas this is, hey, let's just go try and win a championship next year, bring another guy. And then when Bronny can actually play and help us, maybe in year 2, that's your last year. You do it with your son. Your son plays with your son, and we just have a good time with it. It's certainly a logical approach to it. I just don't know if LeBron doesn't think that he can't have his cake and eat it too, which is that they will go after it, that Bronny is signed to a 3-year deal for $5 million or is on a 2-way deal and is playing, with the South Bay Lakers and then coming up at times. I'm just not convinced that based at least partly on what LeBron said about Bronny being able to play for the Lakers right now earlier this season, in spite of what we already knew and had seen. Fair point. That he's of the mind that, you know what, I need to wait a year because Bronny's not ready. There's nothing that LeBron has said that would lead me to believe that he's looking at it that way. It's a fair point. Ric Bucher joining us, Fox Sports 1 NBA analyst. Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio. Can the league have a foreign-born face of the league? Man, it's such a great question because we're getting to that point where there aren't a whole lot of options because you look around, what American-born player is capable of rising to that level? I can only think of one, Okay.
And he has yet to play a game in college. His name is Cooper Flagg.
Okay.
I mean, that's literally, I mean, I understand Jason Tatum can really score, and he's as good a scorer as there is in the game. Okay. But I just don't, and everybody loves Deuce, right? And that's a really cute story, whatever. But like, dude, what are we doing here? You know?
Yeah.
I don't, if he would have been in the discussion, if there was a chance, it doesn't feel like he's in the discussion, so there's no chance. It's really like Luka or Joker, maybe Giannis or whatever, but it's got to be. There's no one else.
Or Victor, depending on how fast he comes along.
Yes, well, I mean, yeah, that's good point. Good point, right? Embiid,
yeah,
but he's always hurt, right? Those are the best players in the NBA.
And I mean, Embiid, yeah, he played at Kansas, but I mean. And he's going to play for Team USA, but it was, do you feel like Embiid just taking a step back?
Yep.
Does he feel like he fills the full-fledged American-born and developed player?
No, but I will say that Embiid, here's what I like about the Embiid story. It is kind of the American dream, right? Like you come over here, not developed, goes to prep school for a year, goes to Kansas, becomes a star, battles through injuries. Now he's the MVP of the NBA. Totally assimilated American culture, huge personality, huge actually physical presence, really talented player. But again, hadn't won anything, hadn't gotten NBA Finals, and he's not young anymore, and he is banged up. So the idea that he'll be the face of the league, like I feel like it's got to be Victor or Luka. Those are the only two guys.
Well, and I wonder, and this is, I mean, you can do the algorithms and the analytics to find this out. I wonder about the audience, the basketball audience. We've seen it shift from being team-centric to player-centric. Fans being fans of not a particular team, but a particular player. And so wherever that player goes, if you're a LeBron James fan, you're a Cleveland Cavaliers fan, and then you're a Miami Heat fan, and then you're a Cavs fan again, and then you're a Lakers fan, and it's really dependent on the player. Are we getting to a point, or will we get to a point, where the nationality of a player doesn't really matter? If he has a personality and he can speak English, and he's the best player in the league, are we to a point now where we've lost sort of the jingoistic, like, no, the only way the NBA, the only way you can be the NBA, the face of the league, is if you are American born and bred. And maybe in some way, depending on what happens with Embiid, maybe he's the bridge. Like maybe that story and his background ultimately is the tipping point. But short of that, like I get the sense that people are beginning to appreciate Luka and the Joker for who they are as players, and the only thing holding them back is their personality or their ability to kind of like
I don't know. I mean,
engage.
Doesn't Luka have a great personality and Joker too?
He does.
Is that we just don't know him?
Yeah,
but I also think again part of that is this is part of I think what people like about them. But also makes it harder is that it doesn't feel like they're as into the walk from their car to the locker room as others are, right?
Yeah.
They're just about playing basketball and having a beer and being a regular dude, and they're not seeking out the attention that others seek out, right? They're not on the gram nearly, like they're just not, and I think that's in addition to their basketball skill and the way they play, I think that's the intriguing part about it. Like that's what people like, but that's also not going to build up the knowledge of their personality with mainstream America.
Well, and it's a matter of who likes it. Like I think traditional, maybe older basketball fans love that about them, that they're just about the game. I wonder about younger audiences where they now expect that the star of the league is someone who is providing them content constantly above and beyond the game itself. But if you're not doing that, if you're not flashing all of that, if you're not doing the fit walk coming into the building and showing everybody like the new Louis Vuitton bag that you're carrying, that you're not with it, and therefore you're not worthy of the face of the league. That maybe there is a generational gap in terms of how we define what the face of the league actually is.
That's great. That's a great point. Well, let's have this discussion some more. It does feel like the post-Jordan era, right? That's what happened with the post-Jordan era, where there was this kind of divide, and then ultimately, I think we settled on LeBron and Kobe to a lesser extent. I don't know if Kobe was ever the face of the league, but both were famous for copying Jordan and how they carried themselves. And it's really going to be fascinating. Rick, you're the best. Love your work. Love you personally. Thanks for joining us.